It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it is great to have you in studio with us today. Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell is back.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good
You
to be
contacted me last week, said, hey, you'd like to come in, talk about police recruitment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I thought, you know what, that's something I don't think I've ever talked about on the show. And then this year, I don't know if it's, this year just seems the highlight is, you know, there's a lot of talk in the media about police officers, criminals, and things like that going on. So I myself would not want to be a police officer right now. And we talked about this. We've talked about this a couple of times.
We hear that quite frequently.
But you wanted to come in and talk about officer recruitment. So where should we start with this?
Well, you know, let me just go back to what you just said in your opening is you haven't talked about it. And I think we're at a juncture in our society where everybody needs to be talking about it because it can, you know, who we select to serve in such a unique position that has so much responsibility and so critical to essentially our society. I think we should have a say in it, and we should be concerned when it becomes extremely difficult for your city's police agency, wherever you live, to recruit the best candidates, because that's who you want. When you need police services, you want the highest caliber candidate. And I don't think any city says, yes, we want bottom shelf candidates. That's a recipe for a lot of bad outcomes. So we're at that juncture where we're trying to raise awareness, we being you know, police chiefs in general or police agencies, and you're starting to see those types of initiatives throughout the country designed to do the best we can to attract what we see as probably an all-time low in qualified applicants that are interested in police careers.
I will get press releases every now and again, not very often, but every now and again. I think I've gotten one from Prescott Valley PD. I think I've received one from DPS too, where it's like, we're down this many officers, we're hiring this many. Flagstaff PD too. Just over the years, we need officers. I personally, I don't think I could be a police officer. I don't think I would have the patience. That's the one thing that gets me is just how patient police officers have to be with the public. I don't think I could do that.
Well, it's a widely misunderstood occupation. I mean, this is the only full-time job I've ever had, and it is, let me just say, before I start going into my story of woe, which I think is replicated, like I said, around the state and around the country. It is the greatest job in the world as far as most of the men and women that do this job, specifically police officers, because I just want to make clear it takes more than police officers to run a police department. We significantly rely on our civilian staff, dispatchers, certainly, volunteers. We have a great volunteer program. I tell our volunteers everywhere I go in the city of Cottonwood, but no, our civilian complement to our agency, just like any police agency, is extremely, extremely important. But the public in general, they see police departments as this. They see the uniform, they see the badge, and the officers out there doing the job. So that's where a lot of the focus becomes. But certainly we have recruitment challenges that extend beyond police officers. They go to another area that we generally have problems finding someone that fits the very, very tight niche. It's a very difficult job, and there's a very small, finite number of humans that can do it well, and that's dispatcher. And what a phenomenal job! What a great way to contribute, but very, very difficult to find somebody that can be very proficient at that job and enjoy it at the same time.
Dispatching?
Dispatching.
Well, that's first contact.
First contact,
right.
Absolutely.
First contact. When you call 911, that's what you're talking to.
Absolutely.
The dispatcher.
Right. And talk about patience and balance, and you know, you've got to have what I call a strong firewall for these types of positions, be it either a dispatcher or a police officer. You just can't take things personally, as that, you know, that obviously impacts our ability to serve our customers, which they are, our citizens are our customers at the highest level. But I want to touch real quick on the, you know, kind of the trending in police recruiting.
Okay.
Because I've had involvement, even back in my days as an officer, I helped with recruitments down in the Phoenix metro area for the agency that I worked for a very long time. And I've seen, the ebb and flow of recruitment challenges through the year. And generally speaking, it's not an anomaly in certain regard. When the economy improves, right, the applicant pool declines. When the economy starts to tank, generally speaking, people, particularly in government, people come to government agencies and say, I think it's time. I like this opportunity. But when the economy is booming, our applicant pool in policing noticeably declines. So what we're seeing now is kind of what I call a recruitment tsunami. Is you've got the economy is improving, continues to improve, and we hope and pray that continues to happen.
Yeah.
But as the economy improves, that pool dries up for candidates, and it dries up in the private sector as well. The market difference this time is at least the last 3 or 4 years of what I will just call rhetoric that has spread a narrative throughout the United States, propagated by the media, certainly involving social media. That's a variable that was never a factor when I was an officer helping recruitments, because it just wasn't there.
It's changed the world.
It's changed the world. So, and that becomes news, and it affects perception, and then it affects politics, and then you have elected officials that are now, tied to those politics in their minds. And then in my opinion, you have bad outcomes, and one of those bad outcomes is, quite frankly, it's been a vilification of the American police officer over the last 3 to 4 years, to the point where we routinely, and I've had it. I just came from, before here, I came from the West Coast, where there's a completely different climate, not as didn't embrace the police like we do in most parts of Arizona. So I'm living a very blessed life. So there's those types of nuances that affect recruitment depending on what area of the country you're in, depending on how many applicants you have to choose from. But certainly the last thing, and I'll go back to it again, last thing anyone, particularly this police chief, will do is compromise on who we hire, because we can't do it. So it becomes that more imperative that we get our citizens behind us, and we recognize the fact that these challenges that we face now for hiring the next generation of police officers have never been greater. Mm-hmm. So we have to get creative. We have to ask for the public's support in finding those candidates, and that goes down to parenting. It's like, I've had cops that have come to me and said, "Hey, my 12-year-old came to me and told me that he wanted to be a police officer," and this is a two officer. The male and the mom and the dad were both officers, and she was from the city of Seattle, which is another embattled city where generally speaking, the community is not as supportive of their police as other areas like Cottonwood and the Verde Valley in Arizona. But she basically said, not only no, but no, mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. Don't want you to do that. And my response to that is, do you really want to say that? Because who is going to be out there to help your child's family?
Right.
We can't just do that. And it took her back, and she kind of just sat there and said, you're right. But it goes down to parenting. It goes down to what we say and do in the schools, our school systems, what teachers, the classroom environment looks like. And it just seemingly to a lot of police officers, the world is kind of upside down now. Where at one point in our careers we were the heroes, and for some reason we become the zeros. Yeah. And that's got to change. That dialogue has got to change, because quite frankly, the majority of it is not based in fact. It's fiction. And it all comes down to, many times, not all, because we do have, we're sure. humans, police officers are humans, and humans make mistakes. Mm-hmm. But at the bottom line is the level of accountability in American policing in the vast, vast majority of agencies throughout the United States is higher than in any other business that I'm aware of. And that, I think, probably comes as a surprise to some people after the daily doses that we get in the media of what to believe anymore, and the police officer's credibility as an example, has gone dramatically down. Unless there's video, we don't believe the officer anymore, and that's really disheartening. Is that the vetting process and the internal accountability that we levy, and I, as an administrator, I've been a chief for the last 5 years. I've fired or demoted a handful of officers, not many, but a handful of officers. I fired one in particular for just dishonesty and just kind of a benign several fabrications to a supervisor. And once that trust is broken, we cannot trust that person anymore. And I don't know many agencies or many businesses, most people, depending on the talent level, you let that slide, and not in our business. So we're out there trying to find the best and brightest, and it's time to get really creative. And again, we need the community support.
All right, with that said, let's take our break. When we come back, you keep saying candidate, candidate, candidate. Let's come back and we'll talk about what kind of candidates you're looking for.
Sounds great.
All right. Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell in studio today. This is Countywide. We'll take a quick 2-minute break and be right back.
This was me. And Mom and Dad. And my big brother Alex. And Jack. And this was the day that I learned that sandals get their name from sand. That jellyfish aren't made of jelly. That stars don't just come from the sky. That the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget that I was sick. And it changed everything. This was my wish.
I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you.
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you.
Welcome back to Countywide. Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell in studio today. We're talking about officer recruitment. Are we short on officers at Cottonwood PD?
We are. We have a couple vacancies right now.
A couple vacancies.
Yeah, and it's
okay.
been it's remarkably difficult to fill. And we're just talking about a couple of positions. Now, that doesn't mean that we haven't received applications, but going back to the statement before, we need to keep our bar very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
As I have seen throughout the years, when that bar is lower, there's absolutely bad outcomes for that person because you set them up for failure. It's just not their job.
Sure.
And you also set the community up for failure and your agency, because the interaction with a singular officer can obviously impact the reputation of an entire department, which we don't want.
What makes a good candidate then?
Well, coincidentally, I was a basic training sergeant at the Regional Academy in Phoenix, which is the state's largest academy, years and years ago. And that's a great question, and one I just talked to our most recently talked to our human resources manager about recruitment issues and what we do look for. And if you look at policing in general, I really don't think there's an answer to that question, because it's such a human-based occupation and it's so diverse that I often say we're looking for a human being that can operate in a spectrum where on this end of the spectrum you're a social worker, essentially. And this is all in the same day, conceivably. And on this end of the spectrum, you're a soldier, because we need people to run towards the danger while other people run away and risk their life for strangers. And everything in between. So the challenge becomes, and you have to be proficient throughout that spectrum. You have to be. And every candidate we hire will land somewhere in that spectrum. And every person we do hire, I ask them where they see themselves within that spectrum. But that's a very, very tall order, is to find a human being that's their personality. Because if you think about those two ends of the spectrum, those are totally two different human beings. And the public, and we expect that this is all in one human being. So it's somebody that has a personality that connects what we're looking for and what most agencies look for. They've got to be, have communication skills where they can relate to other humans. They have to have empathy. They have to have, a sense of accountability where they know when to use the proper, when they have discretion on, do I arrest this person many times? They have that option, or do I cite them? When to use the proper tools, when to use education over enforcement, whether you use enforcement over education. So it's that balance and really kind of a social intelligence level that's higher than the norm, I would say. That's pretty much what we're looking for. Very diverse backgrounds, very diverse ethnic groups. We're very interested, obviously, as most police agencies are, is reflecting the community that we serve. And finding people, just like a company, you want people that have, there's a diversity in your workforce, be it the way they grew up, their training, their education, their educational level, all those life experiences, and you end up with a cadre of police officers and police employees, because again, it goes beyond the uniform, that together we can serve the community at the highest level, because we certainly don't want, for police officers per se, we don't want 100% in the soldier category. It's like we've got, because that's not going to work. And quite frankly, either ends of those spectrums, if you sit on those, that's not going to work either. It's somebody that's kind of in the middle that can go to either side as needed. So it's a very difficult question to answer. And even people as late as just recently, the HR director, they were asking me what college education people should have, and most people will go, it's justice studies, which is my bachelor's degree is in justice studies, but my master's degree is in educational leadership, which is complete. And they're, oh, well, they'll look at me and I was, well, think about what we do. I mean, anything we do, we investigate financial crimes, so anyone with a business degree, a finance degree, to someone that may not have, and I've hired these individuals as well.
So do you have to have a degree to be a police officer?
No,
okay.
And generally speaking, most agencies, there may be a requirement to promote, but most agencies do not require it to come in. So we can bring in people that have just gotten out of the military. We can get people that are coming over from the private workforce, or people that were midway in their college education and said, "Hey, I want to start working." And some of the best people I've hired have been people in that category where their life experience compensated for the lack of, let's say, formal education, which. And then, on the other end of the spectrum, I have great cops all throughout that spectrum, and some that were not so great that had significant levels of education. So it really is dependent upon the human being, and that's the key, is we try to connect with the human. We try to really understand how they think, what their value systems are, and whether they're going to fit into our culture before we offer them a job.
All right, let's take another break, okay? Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell in studio today talking about officer recruitment. Stick around, countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
You think getting dumped by text is harsh? Try getting dumped by a tennis ball. My ex-owner drove me out to the woods, yelled fetch, and by the time I bought the ball back, he was gone. Yeah, I was pissed. But the folks at the shelter helped me let go of my anger. I learned coping skills, like taking it to the hole. Boom! Now I'm ready to fetch again. But how about I throw and you run and get it?
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
Welcome to Countywide. We got just a couple minutes left in the program. We're talking about officer recruitment. We want to make sure you are looking for 2 officers.
We are.
What are you looking for specifically?
We're also looking for dispatchers as well.
Dispatchers as well.
Yes. So, you know, it's more challenging, I think, for agencies in rural counties in particular, as the salaries generally aren't as high as you would get in a metro area. And quite frankly, some individuals that are going into policing, these are your 22, 23-year-olds, particularly police officers, you know, the larger the agency, the more opportunity there is.
Sure.
And quite frankly, you could say it and you go down and there's more crime. So there's many times more for them to do, which there's plenty for our officers to do, I can tell you that. But what we tend to look for are people, and you'll see this in some of our recruitment materials that'll be forthcoming here shortly, is we're recruiting people that value the quality of life that we enjoy, the fabulous quality of life that we enjoy in central and northern Arizona and the Verde Valley, and we're going to pair that with the job, and hopefully that'll be the recipe for success to continue, because we have a phenomenal culture, phenomenal organization with fantastic, dedicated employees, and we don't want that to change, so hopefully that recipe will work.
Okay, we got a minute left. Training-wise, that would be something that could be possibly daunting to a person. How long does it take to become an actual police officer?
Well, you know, and generally people, this is a passion for them. They've thought about it for a while, so they've prepared themselves physically for the police academy. And the academy itself is not that daunting as people would think. There's a progression physically that you're taken through in the academy. There's a baseline level of fitness. As long as you're at that baseline level of fitness, you'll be fine. The academic, you know, it depends on the academy, but there's certainly an amount of stress that's applied. But the outcome is, I think most people remember their academy experience in a very fond way, and they make friends that they have through their entire life, like I do. So, not as daunting as it may seem. And you know, if you have somebody that you know is interested in policing, send them our way, and we'd like to talk to them.
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm not. No, I would fail horribly. Hey, you gotta have a great Christmas, okay?
Thank you.
You and your family, and a Happy New Year. And thanks for coming in so many times this year. We'll have you back numerous times again next year.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, you're always a great guest to have in. Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell. This is today's Countywide. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.